All right, so welcome tonight for looking at Read and Write for Google Chrome. And we're going to look at how this is a fantastic tool for supporting our students. And so why would students want to use Read and Write for Google? So I'm just going to tell you some of the things that it can do. First of all, it can read aloud Google Docs and slides, read aloud web pages, including Google Forms. It can read aloud and annotate different PDFs, and as long as those PDFs are accessible. I'm just going to mute a couple of mics here just for the minute because we're getting a little bit of feedback. But if you do have a question, just please turn your mic back on, and we'll be good to go then too as well. And just so that you know that your mic just isn't on at the moment. But it'll just make the viewing back better. Word prediction, so again, to help students with writing assignments, it can increase help increase writing speed and reduce frustration when it comes to writing. And then there's some study skills like the vocabulary builder or collect highlights, as well as supports, especially useful ones for English language learners, such as the built-in dictionary and or picture dictionary. Okay, so those are some of the things that Read and Write for Google will do. But I do want you to know that it's not just a cool tool. There is a lot of research behind text-to-speech and using text-to-speech, especially with students who have literacy difficulties. So I'm not going to read out this slide, but I just do want you to know that, yes, it is a research-based tool and practice of using it. And so, Read and Write for Google, a little bit about it. So first of all, there is a free version, but our district actually pays for this extension and this application so that we have full access to the features. So what's important though is that we're going to make sure we're signed in with our G-Sacred Google account. So anytime you're looking for it, what we're going to look for is this purple puzzle piece. So that purple puzzle piece signifies the Read and Write for Google Chrome. And again, in the name, we have to actually use Google Chrome for it. So it isn't going to work on Safari or Firefox. It's only going to work on Google Chrome. Okay, so we're going to show you how you can make sure that you'll have access to it. And there's a number of steps we'll go through, but again, when you're looking at these, you can sort of skip through to the one that's most relevant to you when you're looking back at the slides. But first of all, the signing into Chrome. And this just recently changed, so I just quickly updated my slides here today. So depending upon what version of Chrome you're on, when I'm on a laptop or a computer, sometimes up in the top corner, it will just say person 1. And so that means you're not actually signed into Google Chrome. You might have signed into Google Drive, but we're not signed into Google Chrome. And we have to be signed into Google Chrome. It's kind of like the umbrella of it. So again, now depending upon which version of Chrome you're in, you will see your name at the top. Or the newest version of Chrome, which is version 69, which I think, launched last week or something like that, is slightly different. And so now I don't know if you see on my actual toolbar, I'm clicking here, my little profile picture is there, and it says sync to K-Holt at G-Sacred. Now, that's where you'll check and see if you're signed into Chrome. Because if a student or you click on it, and a student says that they're at gmail.com, they won't have this Read and Write for Google app because it's not in our G-Sacred one. So they do have to make sure in Chrome they're signed into G-Sacred. And that's the same thing with the Chromebook. So at the initial sign-in screen right here, they need to make sure they sign in with their G-Sacred. And that's often another misconception, especially with kids who have personally owned Chromebooks. They'll sign in with a personal Gmail, and then they'll go into their Google Drive in their school one, but they can't access Read and Write for Google. So we actually at that time have to have them sign out of the Chromebook and then sign in with their G-Sacred one. So those are just sort of the first things to check when, a child's like, I don't have it, it's not working. They shouldn't have to go and install anything for it. All right, so just, please let us know if you do have any questions or comments. Again, I'll be kind of watching the chat window as well. So the first thing we're going to look at is finding it. And I'm going to just go to a Google Doc. And I'm going to say on slide, I know I have a few, I'm going to go through to the next, here we go. Slide 14 has a link to a Google Doc that you can open up, and I can actually share this link with you through the chat window too. And then if you do want to open it from there, just so that you have something to play with, but you can easily open up any document in your own web browser too. So this link here will force you to make a copy of a document. So I'm going to go over to a Google Doc, and again, so I'm just opening up a document, and this could be any document in your Google Drive. I just always like to use this one for training because I've got some little screenshots of tools. So these aren't the actual tools, these are just screenshots of it. So I'm just going to go up to the very, very top here, and I look, and right kind of hanging below all my little Chrome apps and extensions, I have the little purple puzzle piece. So I'm going to click on it. Now, I want you to notice as well, oh, you have the purple puzzle piece up here in that window too. And when I clicked on it, it just made that one vanish. So again, if you don't see it, you might want to click once on that one. But for documents, this is the one I'm going to use. So I just click right here on it. And now I've got a big old toolbar here. So the first thing I want to do is go into the options or the settings. And I might want to change the speed of the reading. Or if I'm working in French immersion, I would want to change the language to French because it does work in both English and French, and the French has improved quite a bit over the last few years. So I'm just going to go to this little arrow, so it's right on that far corner. Click on it, and I can see here I've got options, help, and support. So it's just options I'm going to click on. And the default voice is the Ava, and I actually really like that voice, so I'm not going to change it. And again, you'll want to pick and choose which students you show this to because they will have a great time picking out different voices and different accents. But the speed is something that I find the default is set at way too fast. So it's usually set at 50%, and I find for most students who use this, they need a bit more processing time. So I always suggest somewhere between 30 and 40. I've got mine at 38, and you can see yourself where you would like it. But that's the main thing that I show students to change is the speed. In terms of the other options, I don't really change those very much unless, of course, I needed somebody who was low vision and they needed to make the text size larger for those things. But again, if you're French immersion, you may look at changing the language. So mine is English United States. Unfortunately, there is no English Canadian, so we choose that one. But then you'll notice there is Francais as well. So you can change that if you want. Changing the feature language actually changes the menu bar. So again, it's not necessary if you're French immersion, but you may want to do that. All right. So again, please pop in if you have any questions. Either turn your mic on and ask, or put something into the chat window if you do. And if I don't hear from you, I will keep going. So I know it might be a little bit fast, but we can go back and watch the recording too. So the main reason, one of the main benefits of Read and Write for Google is the ability to read the document aloud. So again, sometimes when we present things on pen and paper, if a child struggles with reading, it's pretty difficult for them to complete what they are expected to do if they don't understand the assignment. So the nice thing about a digital version, We can send it through Google Classroom. Then they could open up the document, click on their little purple puzzle piece, and I'm just going to simply click where I want to start reading. And I look up here, and again, kids get this one, it's the play button. So it looks like play button on any sort of electronic device. So I'm just going to hit play. And in a second here, this is going to start reading.
Text-to-speech software is that students with moderate intellectual disability.
So I'm just going to press stop. So you might have noticed how we had the dual highlighting. And the dual highlighting, again, is to help focus students on those words. Now you noticed I had mine at 38%. That might have still been a little bit fast, and it probably would be for some students. So again, you may be encouraging them to drag that closer to 30 for the individual student. So again, anytime I want to read, I can, on a document, I can just simply click where I want to start. It doesn't have to be at the beginning of the text, and just press play.
What are your wonders or aha moments about?
Okay. And so those really easy to use. Again, the only difference between the pause and the stop here
Personal response
is that if I'm kind of in the middle of a document and I press pause, it will just stay where I'm at, and then I can continue reading again. So they might want to use pause instead of stop for certain things, especially for remembering where they just left off. And so I'm going to hit, you notice while I'm on pause, I can't use any of my other tools. So I'm just going to press stop. And then I'm going to look at a couple other tools. And the other tools are less commonly, some of these other ones are less commonly used, but I wanted to show you what they are because it's a great way to encourage students. So we know that a lot of our students who have literacy issues also struggle with sort of self-checking and when they might read something and it might not make sense, but they often don't stop to try to figure out what that could have meant. So trying to get students to do that, at least Read and Write for Google has a few tools built in. So here, benefits. So if I was an English language learner and I'm like, I don't know what that word means per se, there's a couple of things here. So right up just on the other side of the play button, so we had play here, I have a picture dictionary, so that's the one with the mountains, and I have a dictionary. So I'm just going to open up picture dictionary, and you'll notice here, so it shows benefit and some symbols. There may be a little bit more iconic, and they may not know exactly what the symbol means, but for a lot of our visual learners, these can help them remember, oh yeah, benefit, thumbs up, that's a good thing. And then that might not be enough for somebody to understand what that word means, but I can then also use the regular dictionary, which is the book. And then again, somebody who is a non-reader or has literacy difficulties, they may need to just click right beside it.
A helpful effect or advantage.
To have the definition read aloud. And the nice thing here too, if I just come off this word, regardless of where I am now, as soon as I select a different word, it will bring it up. So again, some of our English language learners, it's a great thing to encourage them to just leave both the picture and dictionary open, and then while they're reading, they can go, oh, I'm not sure of that word. They can double click on it and select it, and then they can see. And you can see it sometimes just takes a minute for the definitions to load. So those are those two tools here, the picture dictionary and dictionary. And for the sake of tonight's webinar, we won't have a chance to go through absolutely every tool, but I do want to show you a few of them. So the next tools I want to show you are about, so we looked a little bit at reading and a little bit at definition. So I'm going to stick with the definition and look at the vocabulary builder. And we're going to do this in two ways. So the vocabulary builder tool, and again, there's screenshots of these on the slides, but the vocabulary builder tool is this one here with 3 dots and a little line beside it. 3 dots and a line. And that's called Vocab Builder. And so why would I want to use the vocabulary builder? So we all know as educators, we've been taught the importance of pre-teaching as well for not just for some of our students who may have literacy difficulties, but for all students. So sometimes, again, it's looking at those vocabulary words, but it certainly is a benefit for our English language learners having a little bit of pre-teaching on vocabulary or having something to refer to. And so with our vocabulary builder, I can take a passage if I have it, and I'll also show you how to create one of these from scratch. And I'm just going to go up here and I have to choose one of these highlight tools. Now, I've got 4 colors and then a clear highlight. So I'm just going to choose blue for benefit. Now, it's really important to notice that this only really works with individual words. Okay, so I just might put the word increased. I might put the word independent, and I'm just double clicking on the words to easily select one word at a time. Okay, so I could do this with, whatever was the reasonable number of vocabulary words. And once I've chosen those individual words, I go and I click on this tool. And you'll notice over here it says a new document containing your vocab is being created. And in a moment it should pop open. It might take a minute for it to load on your screen as well. And just let me know if you don't see this, but because I can't see what you guys see. But what's on my screen right now is a vocabulary list that was just generated. And it has the word, a symbol if it had a symbol in the system, a meaning, and then some notes, a spot for writing notes. So often if I do this with students or if I create one for students, I will go through, if I'm doing it ahead of time, I'll go through and I will delete this some of these definitions because it might have the noun definition, a verb definition. I'll go in and change those so that it's suited better. And then there's also this notes column. And in the notes column here, you may have students write their own definition, write it in their own words. You may have them use it in a sentence. If they're an English language learner, perhaps you want them to go, oh yeah, this word is equivalent to this word in my home language, to help them make those connections. So there's all sorts of ways in which you can use that notes column. But one of the things that I often notice, and I'll just mention as well, that this vocabulary list, it's automatically saved in my drive. So I might want to, I'm just going to say test vocab. I will want to rename it so I can find it. I might even want to file it away so that I know where it is. But a lot of times teachers go, well, I want to create this ahead of time to provide to these students. And I don't have a passage, I just want to make it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going just to the file menu here and I'm just going to go new document, but you could just open up a new document from anywhere in your Google Drive. So my new document, and I just want to show you if you're just making a list of words and you want to create that vocabulary list to share with students to support them. So again, I've got an untitled document here. I'll just call this, science vocab. And so I'm going to make just a list of words. So let's say I'm doing photosynthesis. Hopefully I can spell that right. At least it will spell check it for me. So photosynthesis, there we go. And I'm actually going to leave 2 spaces because this just helps me make sure that I select I select the words individually. So I'll just do one more word, oxygen. Okay. So I've made this little list of vocabulary words, and now I want to create that list like what Read and Write for Google can do. So what happens often, I'm going to show you what happens often, and then I'll show you the right way to do it. So this is what often happens is people go, oh, I'm going to select everything all at once. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to hit this blue highlight and I'm going to hit the vocabulary builder tool. That's the one right there. Okay, so it tells me vocab builder is being created. It opens up and my page is blank. And you're going, well, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So the reason it didn't work then, if I just close this now, and I'll go back to my list. The reason it didn't work is because I selected all of these words at once and hit the highlight tool. So I'm going to clear my highlights right there. And then I'm going to do it just slightly different. It isn't going to look any different, but it is different. So I'm just going to go choose the word photosynthesis. I double click only on that word. Double click only on sunlight and highlight it. Don't double click only on glucose. Double click only on oxygen. And then I'm going to hit it again. Hit that vocabulary builder tool. And there it's saying my vocab is being created. And this time, as soon as it opens up, give it a second to load, I have my vocabulary list with each word because I did it individually. So there is a little difference with those. I just wanted you to be aware of what can happen when we have all the words selected at once. Okay. So that's a little bit about the vocabulary builder, but I want to show you as well a couple of the tools to support writing. Now, this isn't necessarily a tool that's built into Google Docs or into Read and Write for Google. It's just a tool that's built into Google Docs, but there's a shortcut from the toolbar. And this is the voice typing. And voice typing or talk and type is a great tool for any students who struggle to get their ideas out. It may not be ideal for them for writing a long assignment, but it might be a great starting point for them when they're doing planning. So here, if I just click in this box and I'm going to click on the talk and type, so that's just the headphone one. There's a headphone one with paper and we'll tell you what that one is in a minute, but you can also access it just under the tools menu and voice typing. So as soon as I hit this talk and type menu, it's going to bring up a microphone and I'll simply start talking. Now I can say words like period and continue on if I want. But often with these, it's a great way for kids just to get their ideas out initially. And then some kids may need to use it for a whole assignment and some may just need it for the planning part. So if I just start here and I'll say a sentence about oxygen. All living things need oxygen to survive, period. Okay, so I just clicked off that. You might have noticed, I know it's probably a little bit of a lag with the internet, but you might have noticed that the microphone kind of went red. That meant it was accepting. Now, I've used this quite a few times before, so you'll notice I didn't get prompted to allow my mic, but the first time you use it, your computer will prompt you to allow it. So you do have to click allow, and then it brought it to, it transcribed it. Obviously, students need to have somewhat of clear speech and also be fairly close to their computer and in a relatively quiet area. So there are a lot of limitations with the voice typing in a busy classroom. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes having a headset with a mic helps, or just going to sit in a quieter corner so it doesn't pick up as much background noise. So just things to consider there. The other tool that's quite useful for writing, and again, you know, like I said, I think the voice typing is one of the best things to do, especially when students are planning ideas. But for some students, voice typing might be the only way they can complete an assignment. But for others, they might not feel comfortable doing a whole assignment that way. but another tool that can support it is word prediction. So word prediction is similar to like text completion, which we see on our phones when we're typing, and autocorrect, a lot of people refer it to. But the difference between word prediction is that it just uses a little bit stronger of an algorithm to predict what the next word would be. And it looks at what words came previous, although what's on our iPhone has drastically improved in the previous years. So you can just see here, if I started to type in, and I do have to know some of my beginning sounds. So I know I've got oxy, and then once it comes to this list here, I can highlight the word and it'll say it out loud. If I want to insert it, I just simply click on it, and then and start going. And so I could say is, and if I wanted to say essential, so we can see here, essential. It came up one of the very first ones. Essayist. Okay, so essential. I can simply click on it. So again, for writers who struggle with spelling and even just typing speed, the word prediction can be a really useful tool for them. And so we've kind of had a brief overview of word prediction, the dictionaries, play, pause, stop. We looked at these highlight tools and the vocabulary builder. One of the other tools here, and I'm just going to click off of this for now and close this, is the audio maker. So sometimes we have students that require an audio version of an exam or an audio version of an assignment. And if we don't have time to record that with our own voice, we could find it useful to use this audio maker. And I have used this a few times and I've found it very good. You do want to make sure you have periods so that the computer will pause at the correct places. So if it's a multiple choice question, I would want to have sort of a period at the end of the A option and at the B option. But the audio maker, if I simply click on that, I'm going to need to select the text first. And then if I click on the audio maker, you'll just notice a little status bar underneath there. And then it just pops open. It's saying it's creating this as an MP3. So a really quick way to make an audio version that you can just save then and either share it with students, put it on an iPod if you needed to, or your website where you could stream it or anything like that. So a quick and easy way to make an audio version. So I'm going to come off the documents right now, and I'm just going to go back to my slideshow. Most of these tools I just showed you are also available if I am in a Google Slide, so that's a nice option too. And I'm just going to jump in around a little bit, but I'm going to go here to looking at using Read and Write for Google on a website. So on a website, we know we have students who need to conduct research, and we can't always find sort of the right level of reading, the right reading ability when we're doing research, or our students just are having a hard time understanding what they're reading. So we can use these tools on a website. And you'll notice just the little screenshot I have here, it's right beside the Chrome URL link is where you'll see that purple puzzle piece again when you're on a website. So we'll do a live demo here in a bit, but I just wanted to talk about a few places where you might find digital resources. So again, if you teach English language arts, Project Gutenberg has a lot of public domain books, and that's what we'll use as an example. And then these reference sites, most of these are linked from Learn Alberta. So when you're at school, you'll be signed in automatically, but you won't be at home. But I can provide you with the login information as well, but I just don't know it off the top of my head. So you can access it from home too. But so we're going to go and have a little look at on a website. So I'm just coming out of the slides, and I'm going to go to that Project Gutenberg. And like I said, Project Gutenberg, you can do a little book search here, or if you just want to have a little nose around, I kind of went to the most frequently downloaded books, and Alice in Wonderland was in there. And you'll notice there's different versions of it. So there was an reading it online, an EPUB, or a PDF, but I just clicked on the read online one. And so here it is. So I can jump around if I need to, but again, if I was reading my students we were reading the book, but I had a couple students who were having a hard time accessing the text on paper. This would be an option for them. So all I do is I'm on my web page, I click open, read and write for Google Chrome, and I see a floating toolbar now. So it looks a little bit different than it did on the Google Doc. Most of the tools are still there. You can see I can make an audio recording from it. There are many things I can do. Now, the play button works a little bit different. If I simply started to press play right now,
chapter I down the rabbit hole.
It will often start at the very top of the page, and it will often start too with even reading a little bit of gobbledygook. And not like a document, I can't really click where I want it to start per se. I can either highlight it. So let's say if I want to start with this part, and then press play.
Alice was beginning to get very tired.
And again, it reads exactly like it did on my document. Or I have one other tool here. We don't have this one in the Google Docs, but this is just called hover speech. So, and this works really well, especially if children have a hard time selecting text. They simply click on that, hover speech, so it's the speech bubble. Scroll to wherever they want to start,
she said,
and I accidentally clicked up there.
Poison or not, for she had read several.
And it'll start to read wherever you have your cursor. So again, if I was going to start there, it would start reading at a different location on the page. So that's the hover speech, but you'll notice everything else is grayed out when I do that. So I'm just going to deselect that as well. So again, the web browser, I'm going to just click on this. Any web browser that you're on and you want to have the page read aloud. So like I said, it could be a research site. I come up, I find the purple puzzle piece, I click on it, and I can either highlight the text and press play, or I can use this hover speech and then click where I want it to start.
There was nothing so very...
Okay, so I'm going to pause that and just click on this. You'll also notice we have the access to the picture dictionary and the dictionary as well, just like we did in our documents. We have access to that vocabulary builder so that we can create vocabulary lists from the texts that are online as well. The other thing that we can do when you're on an online text is create sort of jot notes. So this would make more sense if I was doing some research, but I'm just going to highlight a little sentence here, highlight another sentence here, and so maybe I was having my students highlight examples of descriptive language, and I wanted them to highlight, by different codes or colors. So let's just say I've done a few of these. So I just use those highlight tools, and then right beside it there's a little button with 4 colored circles, and that's collect the highlights. So I can click on that. It says, okay, how do you want to collect them? Sort them by color or position. This time I'll say color, and I'll say okay. And it gives me a little message saying a new document is being created. And here it is. It brings up my highlights and onto one document from that site, and then also puts a little link to where that original website was. So again, really powerful for students doing research and maybe they're struggling to kind of keep organized. It's a good starting point. You will still have to teach them lots of explicit research strategies, but that's one way in which they can sort of go, oh yeah, that was found on this particular site. Okay, so the last thing we're going to look at, so that was on websites. We're going to have a little look here at Read and Write for Google with PDFs. Okay, so with PDFs, and there is a video in the slides, so this is the one that often kind of causes the most grief, but it can be also the most useful. So the Text Help has, which is the same company that makes Read and Write for Google, they have a PDF viewer. Now it should be installed on your Google account by default, and mine was working really well last week, and like an hour before we started tonight, mine wasn't there. It just vanished. So I ended up having to reinstall it. So on this slide, which is slide 26, I did put a link there to install it if you need to. And then we're just going to show you how you can access it if it's in your, like a PDF that's in your Google Drive or in Google Classroom. So I'm first going to go to Google Drive and show you that. So here I am in Google Drive. I have a PDF that I opened up not that long ago, but I'll go to Recents. And yeah, I'm just looking, okay, here we go. Here's a PDF I have. I know PDFs in my Google Drive show up red. So I'm just going to double click on it. And I see the preview of it. And again, lots of students will go, oh, I'll click on the purple puzzle piece. And then sometimes something happens, but they're like, well, let me see if I can read this.
Open with
and
page 1 of 34.
You might notice it's actually reading like the whole screen, like reading open with, reading the page number, and it's not ideal, and it's not the way we intend people to be able to work on these PDFs. So now, whenever I'm on this document, and if I hover near the top, I see Open With, and that's what I want to choose. And I should see Read and Write for Google Chrome. But if you have an issue like I did where I didn't have it earlier, that's where I went on that link that was on slide 26, and I had to install it, and now it seems to be working fine. So I'll get John to have a look into that if that's what's happening for everybody. So I just say Open with Read and Write for Google Chrome. And it takes a second, but it opens up in a brand new window, and we'll see the Read and Write for Google Chrome toolbar at the top. And depending on the size of the PDF, it does take a little while for it to open up. So this is what we've got over here. There's our little toolbar for Read and Write for Google Chrome. So kind of like the web pages, yeah, I could select the text and press play.
W hat is your favorite animal.
Okay, and so you can see the W, they just read that aloud. Or I could simply use this, it's a little hand, but it says click to speak. And that works really well again, because sometimes it can be hard to select the text that you want, where you want to start. So if I just...
forests that are home to the spirit bear arnhem.
Okay, I'm just going to close that. So again, quick and easy way to read aloud those PDFs. But something that is really powerful as well with the PDFs is there's this typewriter tool, the T. And with this T, I can simply click on the T and I can click anywhere in here. So I might make myself a little note. Remember this. I also could do a voice note and it would talk and type it out for me. I can change the color of the font or the color, but I do have to remember to put that on there. And if I want to move that around my page. So it's just a great way to, if you're help modeling for students how to make connections to text, they can annotate right on on the PDF if they have their own copy of it. So that's a great tool there. So I now just want to show you what happens though from Google Classroom. So let's say, for example, you have a PDF that you shared from Google Classroom, and hopefully you're seeing in a second now Google Classroom. So I'm in here as a student, and I'm under here, well, I've got course outline and I've got a PDF in here. Okay, so again, just shout at me if you're not seeing it or anything like that. I'm going to click on the PDF. So it opens up in Google Classroom with this like little black bars all around it. And I'm like, I don't have my toolbar. This isn't really working. I click up here. But again, it's not letting me select things and being able to read it. It's going to just start reading at the very top. It's not the way it's intended to work. So again, I'm just going to close this. So from Google Classroom, and I'll just do that again, this is just a preview. So I next have to go to these 3 dots in the black bar at the top. And I have to say open in a new window. So unfortunately, it's a little bit more laborious from Google Classroom. And now I see what I saw from Google Drive. I see open with. So then I just have to go and say open with read and write for Google. And again, there are screenshots of this inside our Google Classroom. And this is good that I'm glad this happened here. My thing is failing to load. And you might notice right up here in this web browser, there's this little red X. That means there was a pop-up blocked. So I'm just going to click on it and I'm going, oh, darn. And I need to change this. Always allow pop-ups and redirects from texthelp.com. Yeah, I need to allow that. Okay, so now nothing still happens. So all I'm going to do is close it, and I'm going to come back to this, open with, and I'm going to try one more time. And remember, this time we allowed pop-ups. So up popped open a thing that said, oh, choose who you are. Yeah. Says, do you want to allow them to access it? And we do have to allow it to work. The reason why it wants to allow access to your Google Drive is so that if you did do that vocabulary builder or any of those other tools, it could save the documents in your Google Drive. And then now finally this is opened up and I have these tools here where I could start reading it. I'm just going to close that. So again, the PDFs are a little bit, take that extra step to open up. But like I said before, the advantage of being able as well to highlight, and this one I think is only shared view only, so you can notice highlighting and the text is off. So if you want to allow your students to annotate on a PDF, make sure that you share with edit access or in Google Classroom, make a copy for each student. And again, in terms of sharing our textbooks, sharing them with the students that need those accommodations, you can, in Google Classroom, just select the individual students in which you want to share those with. So I'm just going to pop back over now to our slides, and our time is nearly up. I said we would go to it is pretty much up. We'd go to 4:45. But I want to just point out that one of the resources I shared with you is that about PDFs, they're not all accessible, which means readable by Read and Write for Google. So if I photocopy something from the photocopier or scan it and send it to myself, most of the time Read and Write for Google all the time Read and Write for Google will not read that, because it's more or less, even though it's saved as a PDF, it's more or less an image file. So for some of those we need to convert, and I use a couple of different programs to convert them just to a readable PDF. Adobe Acrobat Pro works, or this program called Snapverter, and I did email you a handout on how to create them. But also, if you're stuck and you're going, I use this all the time and read and write doesn't work with it, you can email it to myself and we'll convert it for you and send it back to you. But you just got to give us a day or two. Don't expect it don't expect it necessarily an hour later. It doesn't take long to convert, but I just can't guarantee I'll get to it right away. So that you do have that resource. And then I also wanted to just say there's lots of reference materials on this link here. It's our digital literacies website. And Edmonton Catholic has a fantastic website too that goes through all the tools, because I know we didn't look at every single tool tonight. It just would have taken a long time, but something that you can explore. And, I just want you to be thinking about, we've gone through a lot and your head might be swimming a bit, but just thinking about how you might use, which tools you might encourage students to use. And I know there's so many tools that initially I often just start with, well, let's read it aloud. Have it read to you so you don't have to, have that extra cognitive load. And which ones might benefit her when they're writing. Oh, maybe just try the word prediction, see if you find it useful. So I'm going to stop talking. Please let me know if you do have any questions. And I'm going to also stop the recording. So I'm just going to say, well, thank you.